The girl sat on the observation deck, fingers tracing the cold metal railing while distant engines hummed through the hull. Her name was Lily, and she had been blind since birth. The colony ship had been her entire world for 17 years. A maze of corridors she navigated by touch and sound and the patient guidance of others. "What do they look like?" she asked. Tom knelt beside her, his weathered hands gentle as he took her small fingers in his. He was nobody special, just a maintenance engineer from Earth who spent his days fixing broken things. Most people barely noticed him shuffling through the corridors with his toolkit and grease-stained coveralls. "Stars?" Tom said. "Like holes punched in black velvet, letting light through from somewhere else. Some burn white, some blue, some gold. They don't twinkle out here like they did back home. Too far from atmospheres." Lily smiled, but it didn't reach her clouded eyes. "I wish I could see them." Just once. Tom was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that would change everything. "Maybe you can." The human had a gift, though he rarely spoke of it. Back on Earth, before the colony ships launched, before humanity scattered across the stars seeking new homes, there had been whispers of people who could do impossible things. Healers who worked without medicine. Telepaths who touched minds across distances. Genetic mutations, some said. Evolution's next step, others claimed. The government had called them dangerous and driven most into hiding. Tom was one of them. He had fixed broken bones with his hands, cured infections that should have killed. Once, he had restored a man's hearing after an engine explosion left him deaf. But he had learned to be careful, to be invisible. People feared what they didn't understand, and fear made them cruel. "I can try," Tom said quietly. "But you can't tell anyone. Not your parents, not your friends." "No one," Lily nodded solemnly. She understood secrets. Tom placed his palms over her eyes, and warmth flooded through her skull. It felt like sunlight, like electricity, like her nerves were remembering how to dance. The darkness behind her eyelids shifted, swirled, and then suddenly there was something new. Light, color, shape. She gasped. Tom pulled his hands away, and Lily's eyes opened. For the first time in her life, they focused. She saw the observation deck stretching before her, the curved, transparent dome overhead, and beyond it, scattered across an infinite black canvas, millions of brilliant points of light. "The stars," she whispered. Tears rolled down her cheeks, and she could see them falling. She looked at her own hands with wonder, then turned to see Tom's face. He was older than she had imagined, with kind eyes and smile lines carved deep around his mouth. "Thank you," she breathed. "Thank you." "Remember," Tom said, "tell no one." But secrets on a colony ship were like water on a cracked hull. They always found a way out. Lily tried to hide her miracle. She pretended to still be blind, keeping her eyes unfocused, still using her hands to navigate familiar spaces. But joy is hard to conceal. She smiled too much, looked at things too long. Her mother noticed first, then the ship's doctor, then the whispers began spreading through the corridors like fire through oxygen. The girl who is blind can see. The engineer did something. The human has abilities. When the soldiers came for Tom, he was in the engine room replacing a worn coolant valve. 3 of them, dressed in the gray uniforms of colony security, plasma rifles held ready across their chests. "Thomas Grant," the lead soldier said. His name was Officer Blake, and his face was carved from stone. "You're under arrest for unauthorized genetic modification and illegal use of unregistered abilities." Tom set down his wrench slowly. "I healed the child." "You violated Covenant protocols," Blake said. "All genetic anomalies must be registered and monitored. All abilities must be approved for use by the medical board. You know the law." "She was blind," Tom said. She's 17 years old and had never seen a sunset, never seen her mother's face. I gave her that. You gave her an unauthorized medical procedure, Blake corrected. You're a threat to colony security. Unknown abilities spreading through the population unchecked could destabilize everything we've built. Tom understood then. It wasn't about Lily. It was about control, about fear. Humanity had survived extinction by becoming rigid, controlled, organized. They had built ships and rules and protocols, and anything that existed outside those boundaries was considered dangerous by default. I won't resist, Tom said quietly. They took him to the brig, a small cell with transparent walls in the ship's security section. Other colonists passed by, staring at him like he was something alien. Some looked angry. Others looked afraid. A few looked grateful, but they kept walking. Lily came to see him that night. She pressed her hands against the transparent barrier, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she said. I tried not to tell anyone. I tried so hard. It's not your fault, Tom said. He sat on the narrow bench, hands folded in his lap. Secrets always come out eventually. What will they do to you? Tom shook his head. I don't know. But whatever happens, it was worth it. You deserve to see the stars. The trial was short and efficient. The colony administrator, a stern woman named Director Hawthorne, presided over the proceedings with cold precision. The evidence was clear. Tom had used unregistered abilities. He had performed an unauthorized medical procedure. Under Covenant law, both offenses carried mandatory sentences. Do you deny the charges? Hawthorne asked. No, Tom said. I healed a blind girl. I'd do it again. Murmurs rippled through the assembled colonists. Hawthorne's expression didn't change. Your abilities make you a wild-card element in a carefully balanced system. We cannot allow unchecked variables aboard this vessel. The sentence is exile. You will be placed in a survival pod and jettisoned at the next waypoint. A distress beacon will be activated. Perhaps another ship will find you. Perhaps. Or perhaps he would drift through the void until his air ran out. Tom nodded. He had expected as much. But humanity had not survived extinction by being entirely heartless. That night, as Tom sat in his cell waiting for the morning that would carry him into the black, Lily returned. She wasn't alone. Behind her came dozens of others, their faces familiar from corridors and mess halls. People Tom had helped over the years. A man whose broken spine he had mended after a cargo accident. A woman whose daughter's fever he had broken when the medical bay was overwhelmed. A child whose damaged lungs he had repaired when no one else could. They stood outside his cell, a silent vigil. Then Lily spoke. He gave me the stars, she said loudly. Her voice carried through the security section. He gave me everything, and you're throwing him away. He saved my son, another voice called out. He fixed my bones when the doctor said I'd never walk again. He asked for nothing, just helped us. More voices joined, a chorus rising through the sterile corridors. Officer Blake appeared, hand on his plasma rifle, but he didn't raise it. Even he looked uncertain. Director Hawthorne arrived minutes later, her face tight with anger. Disperse immediately, or you'll all face disciplinary action. Then discipline us, Lily said. She stepped forward, chin raised. If helping people is a crime, then we're all guilty. He showed us what humanity should be. Not afraid. Not controlled. Kind. The director stared at the crowd, calculations running behind her eyes. A colony couldn't function if half its population was in rebellion. Rules required consent to have power. The law is clear, Hawthorne said finally. But her voice had lost its certainty. And change the law, Lily said simply. The vote came 3 days later. A colony referendum, something rarely invoked. The question was simple. Should individuals with healing abilities be allowed to operate freely, subject to oversight, but not imprisonment? The result was overwhelming. 87% voted yes. Tom stood on the observation deck again, free, watching the stars drift past the curved dome. Lily stood beside him, her eyes still filled with wonder at every glimmer of light. "They wanted to exile you," she said. "Send you into the dark." "They were afraid," Tom said. "Fear makes people do terrible things. But it also makes them do extraordinary things. You faced down the entire colony administration for a stranger." "Not a stranger," Lily corrected. "The man who gave me the universe." Tom smiled. Around them, the colony ship hummed with life. Thousands of souls hurtling through the void toward a new world, fragile, frightened, but still capable of choosing compassion over fear when pushed hard enough. "Humanity will be all right," Tom said quietly, "as long as people like you exist." Lily looked up at the stars, her healed eyes reflecting pinpoints of ancient light. "I've seen them now," she whispered, "and they're even more beautiful than I imagined." Behind them, the ship sailed on through the infinite dark, carrying its cargo of hope and fear and everything in between toward whatever future awaited among the distant stars.